Good morning. Hello.
Good morning, Harry. How you doing?
Fine. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. It's my last day of quarantine. Very excited to get out.
Ah, great. Hi, Nathan. How are you? We wait for more participants joining.
Hi, Harry. Good to meet you.
Hi. Good to meet you too, Joycelyn.
Hey, how are you?
Fine. How are you, Alia?
I'm good, thanks.
Great. This is me. You don't have to open your camera. It's okay. I think we will wait for another 5 minutes before we start. Okay. Okay. I will start this session, the session of supported by Pulitzer Center Rainforest Journalism Fund for the region, Southeast Asia region. I am the coordinator of the Rainforest Journalism Fund for Southeast Asia, and I'm based in Indonesia. I live near Jakarta. It's 30 kilometers outside of Jakarta to the south, more greenery than in Jakarta. So yeah, thank you for joining this session. I know Nathan and Anton already contact me for a discussion about the environmental condition in Southeast Asia, and you are here. Thank you, Anton. And also thank you, Jocelyn, Alia, Miley, and Oki Ardia. I'm working as a journalist. I started my journalism in 1987 or 89, after I graduated from the Agriculture University. I studied agriculture engineering. And then I joined, after graduated about 6 months, I think, I joined a magazine, agriculture magazine. I belong to this business section of agriculture. And I wrote about business agriculture and other topics on agriculture, including article on hobbies on the planting ornamental plants and other things. And in 1990, I moved to Kompas Daily. Kompas Daily is the largest daily or daily newspaper. And at that time, I started focusing or specializing on environment and science, actually. And I quit in 2000s, and with some friends, we developed a news portal called astaga.com. I only worked there as content strategist for about 1.5 years, and then I moved and decided to be freelancer, and then I write for magazine in Japan. Of course, I wrote in English, and they translated into Japanese and published in the Japanese. And I also a local contributor for Panos London since 1996. Panos London already closed several years ago, and I also wrote for international publication, other international publications, and of course the local publication. One of them is the Jakarta Post, a newspaper, English newspaper, Jakarta Post. And yeah, that's my background. While I am freelancing, I received some fellowship. One of the fellowship, this one is a good one, fellowship is Knight International Journalism Fellowship. In 2008, 2009, I received the fellowship to work with a local newspaper to help them to set up environmental section and train the newsroom on environmental reporting. It was 2008, 2009. I helping at least 5 local newspapers. And I received another fellowship, the second fellowship from Knight International Journalism Fellowship, managed by International Center for Journalists. This time I developed a model of citizen journalism, and this program is still continue. I mean, although the fellowship is already finished, I continue managing this model of citizen journalism with Tempo, a magazine in Indonesia. It's a news magazine. It's called, the program is called Tempo Witness. That's a little background of me. You can search the internet, you can find me, or you can check my LinkedIn account. And now I would like to share my screen with my presentation. This is I just want to share my experiences on covering environmental issue. You can check my blog. I post most of my stories, environmental reporting stories, on my blog. This is my blog on WordPress. You can check it, and I will share some of the stories on that published in my blog. Most of the stories in my blog already published in the media, globally or locally. Okay, this is one of my reports to eJournal. eJournal is a journal that distributed to US Embassy all over the world. I was asked to write it's about climate change issue, especially in Indonesia. This is a story of how Indonesia, the knowledge or the awareness of Indonesian of climate change. This is one of the magazine in Japan. I have a column here. 2 months, once in 2 months, I send a report or stories on environment and development. And this is the one of the story. This one is in Japanese. The same stories with this one. It's about tiger and human conflict in Sumatra. You can check in my blog. There's a full text of this story. Another thing is in 1998 I was a member of Society of Environmental Journalists in US, and I wrote I covered forest fire in Kalimantan, Central Kalimantan and East Kalimantan, and I at that time I still working for Kompas, and I published my story in Kompas, and then I sent the stories in English to the SEJ journal, and they published it in the publication of this society. It's in 1998. It's a big forest fire in Indonesia, especially in Central Kalimantan. Not only in Central Kalimantan, but also in the East Kalimantan and in other provinces in Indonesia. This is another story. It's about Indonesia biodiversity, published in Jakarta Post in 2002. And this one also in Jakarta Post is about indigenous people, how they preserve the land, their customary land. And this one is published in IPS. It's about turtle turtle, sea turtle, because Balinese eat turtles, especially green turtles, and I think at that time the green turtle and the at least two species of the sea turtle not protected yet. There's another stories on the commercial logging in an island, not big island, but an island, and Seabrook Island has at least four or three endemic species, animals, monkeys, and also some other mammals, small mammals. And this one I published in the Compass. Okay, you can check all those stories in my blog, and that's some of my stories. I have a dozen of stories in English, and you can check in my blog or you search the internet. And I've been working as a journalist for more than 25 years, and mostly I cover environmental issues and science that related to environment. And I've been visiting national parks, mostly in Indonesia, from the west, Leuser National Park, Bukit Tiga Puluh National Park, Waikambas National Park, I think more than 5 national parks. I also joined an expedition across Borneo or across Kalimantan, going along the rivers. The Kapuas River is the one of the largest river, and then 11 days inside the forest, and then another days along the Mahakam rivers in eastern of the Borneo. If you can imagine, the Borneo is the third, I think for Indonesia, that is the second, third largest islands in the archipelago. And to across from the west, the very west to the east, I needed 40 days and nights and 11 days inside the primary forest in the middle of Kalimantan. That's the longest expedition that I joined with other journalists. At least, if I'm not wrong, there were at least 10 journalists joining the expedition along across Kalimantan. Okay, now I would like to share my thoughts and my how to say it. After covering environmental issues for more than 15 years, and then I think about how to share, how to tell other journalists how to cover environmental issues. So I start with definition. I took it from Asian Forum of Environmental Journalists. It's a book that explaining about environmental journalism and how to cover environmental issues. This one is a simple definition. Environmental journalism is journalism covering several topics such as health. Now we know the COVID-19 is, you can cover COVID-19 pandemic from point of view of environments, because the virus, the coronavirus, is coming from animals, wild animals that been slaughtered in the Wuhan, and it's migrate into other mammals and then migrate into human. and the human gets sick because of this virus. Also, topics such as economics. Economics is also very close with the environmental issues. For example, this external cost that most of the governments, especially developing countries, they never count the external cost because of these economic activities that create environmental destruction, environmental problem, and the government have to pay to recover or to minimize the impact of these economic activities, and the public also have to pay because of this economic activities. That's about economics related to environment. Politics, of course, politics, yes. For example, all those UN convention is not really about environment. It's about politics between developed countries and developing countries. Always separated into two big groups. The developed countries who have money, and developing countries who have no money. And the developing country who reach on natural resources, and developed country who would like to exploit the natural resources of developing countries. So I have an example, a good example. The gold mining in West Papua, mined by US company, Freeport-McMoRan. It's already, I think it started in 1965. 65, until now, they still get the concession for another, I think another 20 or 30 years. How much money they created and sent back to US, and what happened to the indigenous people in West Papua because of this economic activities. And it's also related to politics, environmental politics. And sociology, yes, of course, it's about people, environmental destruction, environmental problem is related to people. That's a good thing, that when you want to cover environmental stories, you have to think about people. And it creates social problems. That's why I took my master's degree in 2010 and 11 on sociology, and I took a social environmental sociology topic. So yeah, the environmental problem, environmental issue is always related to sociology, to humans, to social problem also. It's about trade, yes. Some NGOs promoting fair trade of a natural resource. Of course, environmental problem, environmental journalism or environmental reporting is also about natural resources, especially the tropical countries such Indonesia and other countries in Southeast Asia or in Amazon or in the Congo Basin, all those countries in the equatorial belt. We are rich on natural resources, especially forests. That's why I think why Pulitzer Center has program to support journalists with grant if they would like to cover the forest issue, especially rainforest issue. Development, especially journalists from developing countries. Government always do they said always do development. And most of the time, they not considering the environmental destruction or environmental impact. Although most of the development project always have to do the EIA, environmental impact assessment, but it's not really followed after the EIA approved by the government. Of course, environmental journalism is also about science, how science explain environmental problem, environmental destruction, and all those human activities that created problem to the environment. And of course, science and technology. In short, I quoted the Asian Forum of Environmental Journalists in 1998. Environmental journalism is report the interactions between human and ecology, human activities and ecology. Climate change is caused by human activities. Forest fire is caused by human activities. Forest destruction is caused by human activities. Water pollution is caused by human activities. Human activities related to ecology that impact to the ecology. Ecology not only living creatures, but also other part of the ecology, the soil, the water, the atmosphere, and all those ecology that disturb the nature through activities in using and spreading, changing natural resources. That's the, I can say it, that is the simple definition. If you want to understand what is environmental journalism, is covering those issues. Yep. You have to change our perspective or point of view or angle. When we cover economic, we have to think about the environment. When we cover politics, we have to think about politics. In October and November, there will be COP, Conference of Parties 26 of UNFCCC, United Nations Framework on Climate Change. I cover first COP in Berlin. And another COPs, especially the Kyoto, I forgot it's COP when the, no, I mean it's COP, I forgot, but I remember how intense the discussion of this Kyoto Protocol. And my last COP is I think it's in Europe. And I gave up because it's about politics. It's not about environment. Now there will be COP26. Most of us, probably most of you, already prepared to cover that COP. Either physically went to Europe or joining online. All those you probably not, or I don't know if you are environmental journalist or not, but if you see or if you cover economic, politics, sociology, trade, natural resource development, science and technology, then think of angle of environments. That's this simple definition would like to tell at least my reflection saying this. That's what I'm done at least. I have a second definition from Michael Fromm. I took it from his book, Green Ink. The book is titled Green Ink. This is he defined environmental journalism. I define environmental journalism as writing with a purpose. I highlight this phrase, writing with a purpose, not only objective that I have to publish this, I have to meet my deadline, no, but writing with a purpose that designed environmental journalism designed to present the public with sound, accurate data as the basis of informed participation. Another phrase, basis of informed participation in the process of decision-making on environmental issues. Most of the environmental problem happening because the process of decision-making on environmental issue is not monitored by the public, or is not monitored by informed public. So we are environmental journalists have to share data, accurate data, and other facts to the public, so the public are informed and they can participate or influence the process of decision making on environmental issue. For example, the government has a decision to develop for example, a power plant using coal. Indonesia will develop several power plants to provide electricity using the source of the energy is from coal. I don't think so. The public or the citizen near the project, near the sites of the project, understand the consequences when these power plants start to work, and what is the impact to them. They don't understand. They're not informed. Then it's the role of an environmental journalist to publish stories, information, facts for the locals near the project sites, understand the impact of the development of the power plant, so they can protest, they can get ready to involve in decision making on environmental issues. How to minimize, for example, how to minimize the impact of this coal dusts that created when they burn the coal. So that's one. And what is the impact to the groundwater that's been used by the public, by the locals? So I practice this. When I start covering the environmental issue, I have to think about what is the purpose of my stories later when it's published and the public read it. What kind of information, what kind of stories, what kind of facts that I should put in my stories, so the people who will get in the impact of the human activities will be informed fully, and then they can decide for the sake of their life through influence the process of decision making on environmental issues. That's the definition of one sentence. Michael Fromm has another 2 sentences. The second sentence is saying this: it requires an understanding of the nature and purpose of mass communication. We are doing mass communication, so we have to understand the nature and the purpose of mass communication. What is the nature and purpose of mass communication? That we communicate through a lot of people we communicate through our readers. We communicate through our audiences. How we think about what kind of stories, what kind of again, it's related to the purpose. And we have to, it also require an ability to research and to report finding with accuracy. Of course, this is journalism. We have to very accurate. Ability to research is not about doing research, but it's about how we can find something that hidden, that for general public, they don't understand that. So we have to dig into the issue. And it should be accurate. For example, if you covering the air pollution, the water pollution because of this industrial pollution, the industry, the factories just dump their waste into the river. And what is the impact of the river? If you just observe the condition of the river, condition of the people near who used water from the river, you have the impact. Yes, but we usually I have to know what kind of waste that's been dumped to this river. So we need to get the samples of the water and go to the lab, the lab, university labs or government labs, to analyze, ask them to analyze the content of the water. So that's another example of research. Not really research, but we know what we know. We know what we want to know for our story. And a lot of language, of course. We have to really write for our readers, so our readers can understand what the purpose of the writing. And the third sentence, it requires more than learning how to write, yes, but learning the power of emotion and imagery. In my experiences, when my stories touch the heart or emotion of the readers, they will do the action. They will react, at least react for themselves, or in a community, they react as a community. Doing what? Doing to participate in process of decision making on environmental issues. You have to write a story that touch the heart, not only the brain of your readers, or they just enjoy your story, but how you influence them through your stories, how you change their attitudes, how you change their behaviors. To change their behaviors, you need a story that really touch their hearts. And we don't have to think, we not to just think simply of who, what, when, where, and why, but think whole and with breadth and perspective. Of course, environmental story, we cannot separate one environmental problem with other things. We cannot separate the air pollution or water pollution of the river only with the factory that dump their waste. But we have to check It's about who's the owners of the companies. What kind of regulation that issued by the government? Do they follow that regulation or not? And how the locals get the impact because of this water pollution. That's the definition that I think it fit to what I've been done. It's about 15 to 25 years. In the beginning, I don't understand. I just do as a journalist, become a good journalist, covering environmental issue because I like it and because I think environmental issue is the most important issue globally that faced by human. So I took my part as a journalist. I know there are many journalists who covering economics, politics, real politics, and all those other bits. But environmental issues is special. It should be mainstreaming in the media because most of the problem that we are human faced are related to environmental, are related to nature. So that's why I choose become environmental journalist. Other things that why I choose and become environmental journalist because I have no competitors here in Indonesia in the beginning. No journalist would like to cover environmental. They said that it's difficult to understand. It's I have to go to the forest. I don't like forests. I have to go to the river to get into the river. I don't like it. I don't like something that stinky. So I started because I have a something that I think that's my role as a journalist. And it's about 12 or 15 years ago, I found the Society of Indonesian Environmental Journalists. Now, the society has about probably 200 journalists who interested, more than 200 journalists who interested in covering the environmental issue. Okay, I stop here for questions if you have, please.
Yeah, Harry, one of the questions and one of the reasons I've been so fascinated with your reporting is how it touches on so many different languages and audiences. You know, at the moment I'm working for a regional publication, but of course our main audience is Cambodian. How have you found over the years to speak to multiple audiences with the same stories?
You meant same stories, right, in different languages?
Yes, and how did you make that one story relevant for multiple countries, multiple places?
Okay, I think for Southeast Asia, we have similar issues. One of the issues is forest. Cambodia also has forest issues. That's forest issue will be also, you can find the forest issue in Cambodia, in Indonesia, in other countries, Malaysia. Forest issue that related to people, because most of Southeast Asia, they live not far from the forest, especially indigenous people. In Cambodia, they have indigenous people. In Vietnam, they have indigenous people. Indonesia have indigenous people. Malaysia also, except Singapore, they have no indigenous people and they have no forests. Sorry. And I think forest is one of the topic of environmental reporting that that will be, if you publish in Cambodian language or Vietnamese language or Indonesian language or English language, people will really relate it I have an example of the. It's about the forest fire that I show you. I published it in the. It published in quite many publications. So I was assigned to cover the forest fire in 1997, 1998. I went to Central Kalimantan and East Kalimantan, and I go along with about 1 week to 10 days near the forest, talking with locals, talking with the government, talking with the activists, NGO activists, and I published the story, three story I published for Kompas Daily in Bahasa Indonesia, in Indonesian language. And then I think this is actually a global issues that will fit to the global audiences. So I write one story in English, that I think related to that will be interested for global audience. I sent first. I sent, of course, to Gemini News. It's also in UK. Sorry, my internet connection is not stable. Okay. First, I sent it to Panos London because I was the contributor of Panos London. It's a publication that is a non-profit organization that publishes development and environmental stories, and any media can pick them up for free and republish the stories. And I sent to Gemini News, is a news agencies also in the UK, and they also publish it. And I sent it to a magazine in Germany called Natur. They also published my story. I sent to a French journalist, in Brazil. She worked for a newspaper at that time, and she published my story in her publication. And I sent also to Japan, the Global Net magazine named Global. They published also in Japanese language because they translate my English. Of course, Natur also translated into Germany language. And I sent it to SEJ Journal, the Society of Environmental Journalists, and they published it also. And I sent to another friend in Germany. He was a journalist and then he worked for Greenpeace. And my story published in Greenpeace website, Greenpeace Germany website. And where else? That's the forest fire is a global issues. And beside forests, climate change is also global issues. Any audiences in any countries would like to know how Indonesia doing to reduce the carbon emission from the forest and from the transportation sectors and from other sectors. So the second, beside forest, is also climate change that will be interested for global audiences. I hope it's answer your question, Anton.
It did. Thank you, Harry.
Okay. Other questions?
Hey, so I'd like to ask you, from your perspective in environmental journalism, how does one catch corporate greenwashing? So, like when we have these corporations who deceptively try to persuade the public that the organization's products are green, their policies and aims are environmentally friendly? How do you catch that?
Yeah, sometimes we struggling how we know that's greenwashing promotion. We have to, that's one thing. We have to research. I mean, research means investigate. Who's the investor of this company? Who's using the we have to check also the chain of custody of the product or the sources, the sources, I mean, how they produce the product, do they get it from where, from which country, how do they get it? If it's a natural resources, it contain natural resources, and then how they get it and how they pay for the, so it's a big thing. It's not a day or a week work. It's probably long time, but the approach, what I'm doing, if I find one thing that's showing how the behaviors or this practice of this company, that while they're producing this product is not environmentally friendly, I have to show, or I have to publish it. And then I find another thing. For example, the product, for example, the usually is consumer goods that let's say it's food. Who is the biggest food producers? It's I think Nestle, and Nestle is one of the big food producers. How they manage, for example, the milk. Do they have this cows? They raise their own cows or not? Or they get the milk from the farmers who take care their cows, and we have to go to that farmers to check with the farmers how they manage the cows, and then we have to have a criteria or basic principle of good environments. Usually, if it's a greenwashing, we will use the principle of green consumers. The green consumer is three things of green consumer principle. One is to how consumer reduce the, when you consume, you think of reducing first. If I don't need to consume this one, then we don't consume it. If the impact consuming this product, we will not consume it. That's the first principle. The second is reuse. Can we reuse the product? And the third is to recycle. So I have green consumer will follow that thing. And then we have to know another principle of ecology. Principle of we have to know about chemicals, natural chemicals, organic chemicals. We have to know about, for example, if it's the natural resources related to animals, then we have to know the behaviors of the animals. If to plants, we probably will know kind of plant, how they product, how they use plant or they process the price. Another thing, there's two things. One, have to dig deep product and the company. Second, we have to know the basic knowledge on environment, principle of how to say, the best principle of environmental issues. For example, the sustainable development. What is the sustainable development principle? The ecology principle. There are there are many principles, including the if you follow the CBD, the Convention on Biological Diversity, there is another principle, there is another protocol that all the government and companies should follow. And another thing is the corporate social responsibility, or now it's changed into all corporate has follow the principle of sustainability. So that's how we decide these activities, these economy activities will create problem to the environment or not. How to minimize? Do they minimize the impact they will create? Because all activities will create impact to the environments. And we have to know by, we have to have something like something that we do or understand what kind of impact they will create it by these activities. I hope it's answer your question, Alia.
Yeah, thanks so much. I think just to get further into it, could you explain more about corporate social responsibility and how we can spot greenwashing in terms of a company being disingenuous in terms of maybe its marketing or stuff like that?
Yeah. Okay. Globally, most of the global company. I mean, now we cannot. It's really hard to separate the local companies. They're related to global companies. Usually, they have relationship with the global institution or global companies, other companies who invest in local in our countries in Southeast Asia. There is a the ISO has published the ISO 24000 series, the sustainability standard. It's a management standard for the company to follow. So they get the certificate of the ISO certificate of 24,000 series of ISO. One of is the sustainability principles of the ISO 24 in management. You can check it and check the company. Do they receive this 24,000 ISO certificate? The second is there is a company or institution that helping those companies who would like to write the report, sustainability reports. Now is more people talking about sustainability report, how they behave as a company related to natural resource, related to ecology. That's all they have to write a report. If the company has no report, then probably this company not sustainable. Their activity is not sustainable. And they also have a standard. I can share with you later. It's about this international. You can search Google search the sustainability report standard or principle, and corporate social responsibility is, I think it's an old one, For example, the European Union has a standard on sustainability, corporate sustainability, not social responsibility, but sustainability. They have a kind of a index of sustainability. You can check if the company belongs to this Commonwealth, that's sustainability index. They maybe has this sustainability index published. So that's the second one. And the principle of corporate social responsibility is a three component of corporate social sustainability. One is the communication, how they communicate their activities to the public. Second is the environment, how their activities impact to the environment. And the third is impact to the social, especially the people near their site. Usually the problem happening to this extractive industry. If the company categorized as extractive companies, then definitely it's not sustainable. That three things that I use usually. My thesis, my master degree thesis is about CSR index, how we index the social, it's about social index, how we index the program of corporate social responsibility. In Indonesia, all the Indonesian companies, there is a regulation. The CSR program is a must. They have to spend certain % of their income for CSR program, the corporate social responsibility program. Although in the practice, it's hard to say how beneficial the program to the community near their sites. That's my answer, Elia.
All right, thanks for your answer. Thanks so much.
Okay, I will continue my presentation. There's not so many slides again. This one already. So again, if you want to be environmental journalist, you have to know a bit about ecology, biology, forestry, not only tree species, but the overall ecology of forests, chemistry, heavy metals, mercury, and those chemistry, those chemists. Economy, for example, about green GDP. There's still in a theory. No, I think no countries applied this GDP, green GDP. The sociology is about indigenous people, environmental sociology, about politics, climate change, developed country versus developing country, or at least developed countries. That's, you have to learn it. How do I learn? I read and I talk with environmental experts a lot. That's how I learn it. And every time I cover one topic, environmental problem topics, I have to find the books, or a scientific journal, peer-reviewed journal. My story, how you learn it, and the experiences. Then I think I have to help other journalists who would like to report the environmental issue. And I create for those explain issues. This is the checklist. Let's see the checklist. Step. Sorry, my connection is not stable. Okay, I will start it again. Okay, here is the checklist. One is the purpose. How you find your purpose. You have to think how this information affect your readers or audiences. Then what do you want the environment, or what do you want the environmental condition change? If you're covering the water pollution, you want the river probably the government have to stop the pollution. That's one thing. And then you have that's how you find your purpose. What do you want the behaviors of the audience change? Also, if related to public behaviors that environment. What you want environmental concession, new concession for oil palm. Yesterday is the last day. Yesterday is the last day. So I think the government will stop. They will start issuing the concession for oil palm in Indonesia. There, that question will help you find your purpose. The purpose will depend on the environmental problem that you cover. So those questions will help find your purpose. That's one checklist. The second checklist is who is your readers or audiences? What is your readers and our audiences relevance? Actually, you answering your audience's questions. Actually, we are journalists. When we write story, we actually answering our audience's questions. Your story should have all answer to this audience's question. Who are 5W and H? That's I highlight the most important answer. We should find the answer. Why is it important for the audiences or readers? What does it mean to me? You have to have the answer in our story. What can or should I do about it? And what is the point? Those questions we should answer. The question of our audiences. Remember, it is not our question. Probably also our questions, but definitely it should be. We should answer our audience's questions. This is the question. What? The question of what? It's about the news. It's about the events, flood, pollution, deforestation. It's actually is an environmental problem. Deforestation, research review, report, new law etc. Important to answer what really happened. That's the answer of what that we have to have in our story. Who is about people making the news? Who's doing that? That create deforestation? Who behind the news also? People issuing the news. Your interviewees, victim of pollution, and all those who. When, time and duration of an event, and its expected aftermath. Aftermath, yes. And where, the location of the event and the scope of impact of the impact. Why? An explanation of why an event occurred, what a report says, what a new law proposed to do, that's all, the why answer, and how can often be answered as steps leading to or follow the news events, because it's an event. Scientific discovery also answering how. Government announcement and adoption of implementation of legislation is also answering how. How to stop the environmental problem, how to, all those how to that answer. Then the important question of the audiences is why it is important. It is important because your readers or audience will lose their belonging, for example, or they could get sick or create bigger problem. Why that is important? Or the another question, what can or should I do about it? This is the question of what precautions should they take? Who should they contact if they have a situation? And you can add more. You can add more questions of what can or should I do. That's the answer. You can add more answer. What is the point? The point is something is the reason for doing this. The reason they should do that. The reason that they should do as you write in your story. The third checklist is observation. Environmental reporters, environmental journalists should go to the field, should go to the sites. You cannot do environmental reporting just in front of your computers only, just based on your computers or those internet things. Of course, internet will help you. For example, have you ever used the Global Forest Watch data or map? You have to use the internet in the front of your computer. But again, it's just the alert. You get the alert and then you have to go to the sites to see by yourself, to see it by yourself, to get the stories. To get the story, you have to go to the site and get the story. And you have to plan where to go to the field or to the sites. Observation is important. Or for radio journalists, you need to record sounds and probably stand up reports live on the situation and condition in the field. For television journalists, with pictures to be taken and recorded. That's the observation important, because if you do not observe, then you cannot get the story. And fourth, of course, interview is another tool for journalists. Who you should interview and what kind of answer that you should get. Then it should be the question of our audiences or readers. and to get the facts that you cannot get through observation. That's the interview purpose. And of course, 5 is references, document, data, to add important information in addition to number 2, answers. That's the checklist. If you create this checklist details, it will help you covering the environmental reporting. I have one more. 6, the field reporting. Of course, field reporting is related to observation. You have to go to the field or to the site to get facts and story, and you should prepare what you should prepare. You should have a knowledge on hostile environment and first aid, of course. That's a field reporting. Okay, I just break and taking question from you, please.
Hi, this is Junie here from One IFRA, the World Association of News Publishers. I happened to catch a quote from Wolfgang Blau. Wolfgang Blau was former COO of Hearst magazines, and he's taken a year off to study, climate change and how reporting can be done better in this space. And I'm just going to put these quotes in the chat. And I was wondering, interested in hearing your response to it. His is about, of course, climate change, but of course it's all related with environmental reporting as well. And there are quite a few overlaps. It's about not just launching a vertical or having a desk, but I think his point really is about having climate change, in his case, climate change, cut across, everything, all stories. What do you think of this approach, and perhaps how could we, sort of encourage this theme or thematic coverage across all desks?
Yeah, I think people saying now the big problem that human facing is climate change. I agree with that, and I agree with that quote also. Yeah. Here in Indonesia, I always tell my juniors, journalists, environmental journalists, saying that climate change should be the mainstream of any reporting. How to do that? You have to always think of climate change every time you cover everything. You have to think about climate change frame. You have to frame the event, the information, all those topics that you cover. You have to think, is it related to climate change or not? You don't have to use word climate change, but you have to think about, is this issue, is this problem related to climate change? For example, one thing that I always tell young journalists, when you go to the site, to the field, first thing that you have to think is about water. When you go to the village, when you meet the villagers, you have to ask them, how's the water? Do they have the water or not? Do they have enough water? Do they have resources, clean water resources? Then you have to know how the environmental condition in that village. Then water is also good thing to start when you cover climate change, because everything, climate change is always related to water. No water is related to climate change because of the high temperature, because of the forest destruction that create carbon emission. Too much water is also related to climate change. It also related to forests. So water is always in your head as an environmental journalist. You have always asking water when you in the field, when you interview your resource person, you have to ask first the water. So yeah, I agree. That's how you frame your reporting, and you can use frame of a climate change frame, or the more general is water frame. I mean, check the water, and then you get more information about the problem related to environment. No water, agriculture will get the impact. No water, health will be get the impact. And water related to climate change. Yes, definitely. Hope it's help.
Yes, thank you very much. That's great perspective.
Okay, this is I checking the chat from you. Yeah. It's this is the okay. I read it from Junior. For new organizations that are just launching their climate journalism initiatives, it seems wise not to just mimic what other large players have done in that space already, but to think that the very idea of vertical and that's discovering the climate change, the climate crisis. That's the quotes, right?
Yes,
As a
that's
new
right.
organization can appoint climate editors and launch climate text to your heart delight, as long as you chief editor. Okay, that's the quote. I think again you have to create a climate change frame, and I suggest you start with water. Yeah. Okay.
He's calling for a reapproach, a rethink of the whole approach of, I guess, storytelling and the underlying basis of stories, whether it's business, it can be a business story, it can be a social story, it can be a political, it can be economic. There's so many ways to slice and dice it. I guess the underlying thing is that it all ties back to climate change.
Yes. But if you're not using the climate change frame, then you can relate to climate change. So yeah, your reporters or editors should have that kind of a frame. But before you can create the frame, you have to understand the climate change.
Yes.
Climate change itself. Yep. Okay, I have my last slide, I think, but unfortunately it's in Bahasa Indonesia. Is how you see the forest. The problem of the forest is deforestation. That's all. Deforestation. It's about losing the forest cover. That's another phrase. Lost the forest cover. Because this is this phrase used by these people who always using the satellite image. They cannot say it's deforestation. It's a cover lost. They say the cover lost. So deforestation is, as I told you before, all human activities. This in the upper text is human activities is, for example, human activities is also exploitation, the commercial logging, illegal logging, source of energy as wood stove, and encroaching, plantation, oil palm plantation, and mining. All those human activities will create impact to the forest, which is deforestation. And deforestation will create so many problems. The destruction of the soil destruction, and the richness of the soil. It will create the erosion, soil erosion. And deforestation we will lose the income for some indigenous people who depend on the forest, and it will increase the runoff when it's raining. It will increase the runoff to the river, and it will create flood. Flood will impact the erosion, soil erosion also, and it will create siltation to the river and to the dam. And deforestation also we will lose the groundwater. There is no area that catch the rain, the water, rainwater for the groundwater. It will create problem of the agriculture problem, and or a dryness, and the forest fire. It will back to the deforestation. And in terms of ecology, the habitat loss and the species gone, all species gone. We don't know how many species are already gone because of deforestation. And it will create impact to this food supply or medicine supply. And it also, siltation also create problem to water supply, floods, and also created problem to the food supply and the medical supplies also. And it will create hunger. And deforestation also will increase the global warming and change the climate change. It will speed up the climate change and will create more natural disaster. And of course, it's hunger and also the loss of natural resources. That's how I see the forest issue. If you're interested in submitting the proposal to Rainforest Journalism Fund. Okay, that's all that I want to share with you. If you still have a question, please.
I suppose, Harry, you could share maybe guidelines and tips on how to succeed in getting grants, since there are a lot of young writers in this room.
Okay. First, they need to really like the environment, to go to the forest, to go to these nature sites. That's the first, and then they need to read a lot, book on environments. I mean not environment in terms of environmental reporting only, but it's about the knowledge on environments. It's about the forest, how you separate, or how you know which one is the rainforest. Why it's called rainforest, for example? Why it's called rainforest? Because inside the rainforest it's always raining. It's always raining because it's so humid. Its humidity is very high. So it seems that it's always raining, always water inside the dense rainforest. That's why it's called rainforest. And also it emitting the water, the favor of the water. That's why it's called rainforest. So that kind of knowledge you should have, and they should talk to expert on environment, because a lot of expert on environments, especially, for example, if you I myself interested in the apes. It's about apes. What is the difference between apes and monkey? I interview, for example, one of my favorite scientists is Jane Goodall, who expert on chimpanzee. I interview her at least 2 times, and I got a book from her. I got a book from her with her signature. One of the very basic book on chimpanzee. So yeah, read a book about I have her books, a lot of books, 5 or 3 or 5 books that wrote by Jane Goodall. I also did interview the expert on orangutan, Birute Galdikas, because it's in Indonesia. And I also interview the expert on gorilla. So I'm interested in great apes, especially great apes, not only apes, but great apes. So how we help these young journalists, young writers to develop the interests on the environment. It doesn't have to be interested in the climate change. It's hard to interested in climate change, but animals is a good start. It's a good start. Ask them to, or create a session with an expert on the primate, especially primates, or ask them to talk, create a session with expert on, for example, on insects. Insects is easy to find, and you can write many stories about insects. It's difficult to get near the gorilla or chimpanzee or other apes or monkeys. You can go to the zoo, but it's not real animals in the wild. And then hopefully, because they learn a lot about those animals, they start interested in environmental knowledge, and they will again and ask what is the behaviors of this gorilla. That's if I have to encourage, right, in environment issues, what I will. Question, still have time? No?
Kang Hari.
Yes.
Halo Kang Hari.
Yes.
Hi Kang Hari, how are you?
Fine. How are you, Oki?
Way years ago, like 20 years ago at Komodia. So hopefully you're doing well. Just a short question actually. I mean, but actually I have a question. As an environmental journalist, are we able to be advocates for changes to improve the quality of the planet? That's the first question. And secondly, climate change now is quite popularly. I mean, like there's a lot of notice, like 2 or 3 years ago, there's a lot of grant about giving out to journalists, not only journalists, sometimes for a photographer, they give out a lot of grant and fellowship related to with quote climate change issues about that. But fortunately, I think sometimes, as you have mentioned earlier, we are lack of training. But for environmental journalists, because as you said, not only covering the who, why, what, the popular in journalism, but it's very important to have a training and then how to know the impact, and also we have to know about the biology and chemistry as well. So how do you cope with that about training for journalists, especially in Indonesia and nowadays, where we have another challenge that people tend to read the social media instead of newspaper. Thank you.
Okay, I will try to answer because I not really get clearly what you are asking, what you asked for. Yeah, I think now there is more session on training, on environmental journalism training, especially done by the Society of Indonesian Environmental Journalists. And they have a session, they have through this equatorial.com, they provide grant for journalists for covering the environmental issues. So yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. You asked how to start the environmental journalism training, or again, can you say it loud and slowly? Slowly.
How do we get access any information or training about for environmental journalism, something like that? Because you mentioned earlier on your first slide, I think, that it's also very important not only covering the who, why, what, when, and how, but also understand more about biology and chemistry. I think we missed that a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you want to cover something, you have to understand clearly and fully the thing that you want to cover, right? So yes, and how you understand that, you have to learn it either from someone who expert on that issue or that topics, or you find books who can explain so you get you get understand, or you understand the topic. It will be very hard to write a story if you don't really understand the issues. For example, if you want to cover the climate change, for example, climate change, you have to understand the basic knowledge about climate change. If not, you will be like in the middle of nowhere. You don't know where to go. You don't know where to start. So at least you know the basic understanding of climate change. Or another thing, for example, if you want to cover the forest issue, cover the conflict between the oil palm plantation and indigenous people, you have to understand the oil palm, how the plantation practice, how the indigenous people live. So you need to prepare, you need to do your homework before you start reporting the environmental problem. There is not many, there is no, at least in Indonesia, I don't think there is a lot of books on environmental reporting. I don't know. I think it's only one probably. I have a plan to write this environmental reporting books. Not only one book, but I know journalists need the knowledge. They need the book. First, I would like to write the books about it's about the basic of environmental journalism, based on my experiences and based on books that I wrote, I read. And then I will write another books, how to cover climate change, how to cover forest issue, how to cover air pollution, how to cover water pollution, how to cover wild animals, how to cover the economic related to environment, how to cover all those things in very not very thick books that will get the benefit for the journalists who are interested in environmental journalism. So yeah, so this is a response from UNI. My organization was Association of News Publisher Wanifra. Yes, so we'll be organizing a climate change reporting e-summit next February too. Yeah, you're free to join. Yeah. Yes, thank you. You can check. Okay, you can check the chats, and you can copy the email of UNI and contact her. Okay, one or two more questions, please, if you have. Okay, I think enough this session, and thank you for.
Halo.
Yeah, Barita.
Sorry telat. Jadi
Sorry, cannot hear you.
halo.
Yeah.
Halo.
Yeah, Barita.
Udah bisa? Udah.
Ya.
Halo. Oke.
Ya.
Jadi ada semacam apa ya? Saya udah nulis tadi. Climate change, perubahan iklim yang terjadi di daerah kawasan Danau Toba itu menurut data BMKG yang menyebabkan banjir di November 2020. Nah, kemudian saya melihat ada tentunya akan terjadi pengikisan air dan segala macam, dan termasuk juga salah satu deforestasi itu perambahan hutan untuk kepentingan food estate. Nah, kemudian saya meneliti lagi soal ada ikan endemik yang punah menurut menurut Menteri Perikanan ya, itu ikan batak yang termasuk dalam kalau Indonesia ikan jurung. Nah, ada satu daerah tetap di kawasan Danau Toba itu seperti aturan seperti lubuk larangan gitu kan. Apakah itu termasuk dalam solusi dalam deforestasi atau apa gitu? Saya belum dapat kliknya gitu. Bagaimana Mas?
Barita, yeah. This session should be in English. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay.
Barita speaking in Bahasa Indonesia. It should be in English. The session with Bahasa Indonesia is last week. And one more thing I got from Barita. Barita asking that report from the Research Institute in Indonesia that a flood is because of climate change. Be careful. Climate change is a global phenomenon. It's not the local. You cannot say flood because of the climate change. You have to check again. It can be because of the deforestation, not because of climate change. It heavily because of the deforestation. So in your story, you cannot say climate change creates flood in certain area, very small area, nowhere in the globe, because climate change is a phenomena, it's a global phenomena that probably climate change will worsen the flood, yes, but not create the flood. The flood itself created because of the people cutting the forest, for example. It's clear. So be careful using phrase climate change. Check first. Is it a local? Is a local phenomena, or is it a global phenomena? Yeah. If it's local, just telling story about local, climate change will worsen. If there is no global warming, probably the flood not that worse. But because of the global warming, it creates flood that heavy flood. That's relation between global warming, climate change, to what happening, environmental destruction, and what the impact of this environmental destruction. Climate change will worsen the forest fire, but the forest fire not created or because of climate change. No, climate change not causing forest fire. People who start the forest fire. Climate change will worsen the forest fire. Yeah. So we have to really understand about climate change. It's a global phenomenon. So we have to think locally first, check local situation, check local condition. Is this flood happening because of what? Not climate change, not suddenly people saying it's because climate change. All those things is the government, the lawmakers just trying to blame climate change. Every environmental destruction is easy just to blame climate change. Is forest fire because climate change? No. Flood because climate change? No. Climate change, yes, it will create impact, will worsen the flood, will worsen the forest fire. You cannot say climate change create forest fire. No, because of climate change, it's happening forest fire. No, be careful. Yeah, be careful.
Okay, thank you, Mas.
Okay. I think it's time. If you have a short question, I can answer probably. My presentation slide will be shared through the email that you receive from the Pulitzer Center, yeah. Or you can email me. This is my email. This is my formal rainforest journalism. Or I just share my slides. Wait a moment. That's my contact. You can email me. I will send my slide presentation, and the recording will be available probably tomorrow. It's also will be Policy Center will inform you how to get the recording. Get it? Okay. Okay, and thank you for your attention and joining my session. Hopefully it's you get something from this session. Thank you again, and see you again. And don't forget, if you're interested in submitting the proposal, please send it to Southeast Asia Rainforest Journalism Fund. You can check the websites. And if you still have questions, you can email me, and I would love to answer your question. Thank you. And see you again.
Thank you, Harry. Bye-bye.
Will do.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank Harry.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Everyone. See you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, I will stop this section.